Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you'd like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Alright everybody, I was able to start reading the CASO investigation reports from the new investigation. And I was going through it and immediately saw something in Tom Pierce, in the little interview with Tom Pierce, that one of my viewers pointed out in the previous video that I just wanted to revisit. So I got out my best King Kratz picture here for everybody, and we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at some things here. We're going to first see something from the new investigation from Tom Pierce, and then we're going to see a couple of documents from the old investigation, so that I think are interesting and food for thought for people to really illustrate how ridiculous what Ken Kratz suggests about Stephen and Teresa, and him hiding and trying, and she was afraid of him, and all those things that Ken Kratz tried to make people believe. So we're going to go ahead and go through some of those things here today. But like I said, I will also leave a link to the new CASO investigation reports down in the info below. But right now we'll go ahead and move on into it. We all know that Ken Kratz tried to say that you know, Teresa was afraid of Stephen Avery. That's why Stephen Avery had to use star 67, because he had to hide his identity because she was afraid of him. Well, there's documents that prove that wrong. But what's also interesting here is that Tom Pierce seems to believe pretty strongly that Ryan Hillegas was the one that was harassing Teresa, actually. Which in all of this begs the bigger question: why wasn't Ryan Hillegas investigated more then? I mean, it's the huge elephant in the room, and it's not so much the elephant, it maybe used to be, but now that MAM came out, lots of people obviously have been asking the question. But really, that's the huge thing here. How is it there's all these little things about Ryan, and they now have to go 13 years later and start asking questions about Ryan? You know, I find that interesting. Alright everybody, so going through the new CASO 2017 2.0, and was reading through the statement of Thomas Pierce here from when Dietering went over to speak with him and ask him some questions. Now this is interesting right here, right? Because Kratz tried so hard to say that Stephen was the one that was terrifying Teresa, that she was scared to go there, that he was hiding his identity. Okay, here's something I want to point out here. So Thomas went on to indicate that Teresa would sometimes get phone calls which Teresa would find disturbing. Thomas stated that he suspected Ryan as being the source of the call. However, he could not confirm this. Thomas stated at one point Teresa stated Ryan was abusive. Thomas stated he did not know if the abuse that Teresa spoke about was physical or verbal. Okay, so there we have a clear indication that she was getting harassing phone calls. Okay, here's the thing. When Kratz tries to say that she was afraid of Stephen Avery and didn't want to go there, and that's why Stephen was hiding this, we have other reports. We have from the original investigation and everything that prove Teresa liked Stephen. She had nothing against him, basically. And there's a few different things that show that, and I'm going to go ahead and show those things in this video to show just how badly the prosecution was trying to fudge things, because they're trying to claim that this person that was harassing Teresa was Stephen, but we can see in reports, you know, where Teresa, you know, spoke to like some of her friends or coworkers at Auto Trader, and where she was joking about Stephen and didn't seem to have any ill will, and at one point even said she was going to the Avery property. She knew who was there and all the people that lived there, and she was still perfectly willing to go and had no issues with it. So when we know all these things, we know that the prosecution was trying very hard to twist things. All right, so we're going to start with this. This is from the original CASO investigation back in 2005, on November 20th of 2005. They're having contact with a gentleman named Mark E. Hareed here. He explains that he believes that he was in contact with Teresa online in an online chat room through online usernames. They were talking to each other and that sort of thing. Now, what's interesting is number one, he has a fair amount of detail of why he believes that it was Teresa. Kind of here, stated that it was for certain the day before she went missing when he was talking to this person. He stated that he had tried to contact her via Yahoo on a previous occasion. He stated that he had looked up her profile on members on yahoo.com. So, kind of maybe looks like he was stalking her a little bit, possibly, but he goes on to say some other things here. But he stated actually that he had done chat with her a day before she went missing in a Wisconsin chat room. He stated Teresa mentioned she enjoyed photography, and that this is one of the items he used in queried members on yahoo.com to locate her profile. So anyways, this guy was kind of, digging in a bit. But the part that's interesting is down here, so I'm going to make this bigger. Hareed stated the person he was chatting with, who he believed to be Teresa, mentioned seeing Stephen Avery in file footage run on television regarding his multi-million-dollar lawsuit. She indicated she had been to Stephen Avery several times before taking photos. According to Hareed, the person he was chatting with stated that friends of hers had told her to not hang around with the Averys, but she thought Stephen was a nice guy. So there's definitely one account that Teresa Halbach did not have any problem with Stephen Avery. She thought of him as a nice guy. She was not trying to avoid him, as Kratz would as this whole thing that Kratz made up is trying to have anybody believe. That's not true. Right there, clearly says that she thought he was a nice guy. But look, if you don't believe this, if you think, oh, this online guy, maybe it was her, maybe, I don't know how many people he could have been researching that were named Teresa, that did photography, and that would have been going to this Avery salvage yard that he was talking to. But hey, if you don't want to believe this, well, maybe you'll believe the account of one of Teresa's coworkers over at Auto Trader. So let's take a look at that. All right, so here's another little piece from the original CASO report back in 2005 or whatever. So she makes a lot of phone calls during the day and does not remember, but Dawn did tell me, this is the account of Rachel Higgs, did tell me she commonly leaves messages for her photographers on their voicemail for appointments they are supposed to go to. She did state when she had talked to Teresa had told her she was going out to the Avery property to take the photo. Dawn states Teresa seemed fine on the phone and when they had spoken with her. Dawn states Teresa always seems to be a pretty upbeat person when she speaks with her and does not know of any type of problems that Teresa would have. Okay, so if as Kratz is asserting that Stephen was this one harassing Teresa, and that's why he was trying to hide his phone number, that it wasn't because he was becoming something of a local celebrity, being on the news, and stuff like that with the Avery bill and the Avery Commission and all that. If we're to believe Kratz, then why wouldn't Teresa have reacted right here for Dawn when she, if she was going to the Averys and that's who was the person causing her grief and harassing her? Wouldn't Dawn have noticed, like Tom Pierce noticed when she would get those phone calls, the change in her demeanor and how he would notice, and he was asking about those calls and trying to help Teresa with that because he could tell visibly that it was affecting her. So I would think that if Avery was the one doing that, when she talked to Dawn, and if it was actually Avery doing all that, she would not have been a pretty upbeat person, in my opinion. All right? That's just common sense. So that blows that whole part of the prosecution's theory out of the water. Like I said, it's absolute BS. So when it comes down to it, whether we believe this guy who believes he spoke to Teresa online the day before the 31st, basically on the 30th, or we believe her coworker, who we saw her, words from the previous CASO investigation in this video. So, or both. Either you believe one or both, whatever it is. But the point is that it seems pretty clear that Teresa was not afraid to go there. She knew where she was going and still went willingly. I'm just the fact that we know that when we read Tom Pierce, what he said to Dietering, that to this day, Tom Pierce still is moved by exactly what he saw in Teresa when she would take those phone calls, those ones that would upset her. You could tell that still sticks with him to this day. There's got to be a reason why. And I think that Calumet County, Ken Kratz, Tom Fallon, Tom Fassbender, all of them dropped the ball, really dropped the ball, and failed to get Teresa Halbach the justice she deserved. Because whoever was harassing her like this and making her feel this way is most likely going to be the person that did this. Instead of going after Stephen Avery to make problems go away, who didn't have a motive, and they prosecuted without a motive, yet if he wanted to put anybody up to beat Denny, he had to offer that they had a motive. I mean, how convenient is that? The state just gets to say, no, we don't need a motive, but, if you want to put up anybody, you absolutely have to have a motive. What the hell? If you obviously think that this is a crime that was committed in a way by a person who has no real, personal motive or like intimate motive, that it's just a random crime of passion, violence, sex, whatever it might have been, then it would have been that for everybody, not just Stephen Avery. So I've always found that very, very strange anyways, that the prosecution was not required to put up a motive, but if they wanted to beat Denny, they had to. But anyways, I digress. The whole point here is that they dropped the ball. They did not find out whoever this person was. With Definity, they did not find out who this person was harassing Teresa. And had they found out who this person was, I think it would have put a whole different face on this investigation, and I think they might have actually found true justice for Teresa, because it makes more sense to me that the person that was harassing her at the time was somehow involved with her demise. Anyways, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you later.